Imagine watching an intense match between the two economic giants of the world, the US and China. On April 19, 2025, China made a move that caught the attention of the entire world. They shut down one of the busiest ports, the port of Shanghai, and delayed $10 billion, 0 cents worth of goods bound for the US. The official reason? Routine inspections. But behind this so-called inspection, could it be a carefully calculated strategy in the ongoing trade war between these two powerhouses? Immediately, this move caused a ripple effect on global shipping routes. And if you think only economists were stunned, even Donald Trump couldn't escape the shock. The scale of this blow was massive, and it could completely change the trade rules as we know them. But the truth behind this delay is more than just a routine matter. This could be a clever tactic, a deliberate move to directly strike at the US economy, especially as the tariff war between the two countries shows no signs of cooling down. So, what happens next? Let's explore whether China will continue using this strategy to control global trade and the far-reaching impacts it may have on tariffs, supply chains, and geopolitical relations. Stay tuned. Picture this: $10 billion, 0 cents worth of goods suddenly stuck at one of the busiest ports in the world, Shanghai, while everyone waits for them to arrive. The official reason? Environmental and safety checks. But behind that reason lies a different story, an orchestrated move that is turning heads worldwide. Trade experts immediately recognize that this isn't a coincidence, but a calculated, retaliatory action by China in response to US tariffs. The port of Shanghai, where this delay is happening, is no ordinary port. It is the busiest port in the world, handling 17% of China's total trade and 47 million containers annually. So when $10 billion, 0 cents worth of goods are held up, it's not just a minor glitch. These containers contain semiconductors, electric vehicle parts, and critical medical supplies bound for the US. And this has huge implication. Think about the consequences. This delay has caused a bottleneck in the global supply chain, with a 20% increase in delay times just within 1 week. Imagine how industries like electronics, electric vehicles, and healthcare are affected. Essential products that the US relies on from China are suddenly held up, making the situation even more tense than before. And here's the twist. China is no longer targeting agricultural products like soybeans or wheat. This time, they've shifted focus to high-tech industries, critical components that the US economy can't function without. This is a direct hit at key economic sectors, a powerful strike that could shake an entire nation's industrial base. But China isn't stopping there. Instead of opting for blunt tariffs, they chose a more sophisticated strategy, what we could call a soft strike. This is how they disrupt the system to its maximum potential without triggering penalties from the WTO. Quiet, subtle, but incredibly effective. And that's what makes this move even more dangerous. No one really knows what China's next move will be. As soon as the delay at the port of Shanghai occurred, its impact quickly spread. And it didn't stop at just numbers on paper. This disruption has created significant shocks in everyday life, directly affecting the products we use every day. First, the technology sector is one of the hardest hit industries. Semiconductor chips, essential components for all modern electronics, are in short supply. This has begun to disrupt the production of electronics, with orders like the iPhone 17 potentially delayed by up to 2 months. Along with this, the shortage of laptop components will leave stores with insufficient stock in July 2025, causing major difficulties for consumers and businesses alike. However, the impact isn't limited to just technology. The automotive industry, especially electric vehicle manufacturers like Tesla, Ford, and GM, is facing a massive challenge. 70% of their EV battery components are imported from China, and now, with shipping disruptions, their logistics systems are paralyzed, forcing electric vehicle manufacturers to face delivery delays that could stretch into 2026. This is a nightmare for the auto industry, especially as demand for electric cars continues to rise. And it's not only technology or automobiles. Healthcare is also feeling the effects. 40% of syringes and 30% of diagnostic kits in the US come from China. And with this disruption, hospitals across the country have started reporting shortages. Especially with flu season approaching, the lack of essential medical equipment could cause a crisis in healthcare facilities. With this disruption, prices are also beginning to climb. According to forecasts from the National Retail Federation, prices for items like electronics, auto parts, and household goods may rise by 5% to 10% by mid-2025. You might end up paying an extra $50.00 for your smartphone or $2,000.00 for your car. That's a significant shock to consumers. Additionally, another factor worsening the situation is demurrage costs. This is the fee shipping companies must pay daily for containers that are stuck, ranging from $100.00 to $200.00 per day. This causes costs to soar and makes the supply chain problem even more severe. Both consumers and businesses will pay the price for this disruption, and the short-term effects may last much longer than expected. So the impact of this event doesn't just stop at trade figures or ships stuck in port. It has been and will continue to spread into every corner of daily life, creating noticeable changes that we'll all have to face. The trade war between the US and China has now entered a new phase of tension. Starting October 14th, ships from China will face enormous fees ranging from $1 million to $3,500,000 when docking at US ports. This is a major shock for shipping companies, especially considering that China is the origin of most international shipments. Jean Soroka from the Port of Los Angeles warns that even a 10% reduction in cargo volume could lead to thousands of job losses at US ports. Shipping disruptions have never been more apparent. Container shipments from China have dropped by 25%, and shipping companies are scrambling to replace Chinese vessels with ships from South Korea or Japan. But is this a long-term solution? Retail giants like Walmart and Target are also facing severe shortages of goods. Warehouses have become lifelines as importers stockpile products to avoid shortages while ships are unable to dock. Shipping companies are struggling with the sudden changes in cargo volume, creating major instability in the market. This trade war is no longer just a short-term standoff. It's a prolonged battle where tariffs and supply chain chaos are forcing industries to adapt. Each new move not only affects ships or ports, but is also shaking the global economy. In the end, who will come out on top in this fight? The trade war between the US and China is intensifying, and the US cannot remain idle. To reduce dependence on China, the US has launched two key pieces of legislation: the CHIPS Act and the Inflation Reduction Act, aimed at rebuilding domestic manufacturing, especially in the semiconductor and electric vehicle battery sectors. However, these changes cannot happen overnight. New factories won't be operational until 2027, meaning the US will still rely on China for a while. China continues to control 70% of EV battery production and 80% of rare earth minerals, both critical for technology and clean energy. Alternative routes through Japan, South Korea, or Vietnam help ease the pressure, but aren't enough to replace China entirely. In addition to port difficulties, air shipments from China have also decreased by 30%. Major US ports, such as Chicago, Dallas, and Atlanta, are impacted, while shipping costs from Southeast Asia have increased by 15%. If the US decides to sever ties completely with China, experts warn that it could lead to a 2% reduction in GDP, which equals hundreds of billions of dollars in losses. The US is making efforts to rebuild domestic manufacturing, but in the meantime, China continues to dominate in critical technological sectors. The big question is whether the US can catch up. The trade war between the US and China is not just an economic struggle. Behind each decision, tariff, and move lies a part of a larger geopolitical battle where both nations are vying for control of the global economy and influence. Trade is no longer just about goods and money. It has become a tool of national security. Both the US and China understand that trade affects not only the economy, but also political power. In the modern world, controlling the global supply chains and production is an essential part of national security strategy. One area where the US is most concerned is shipbuilding. While China constructs 1,700 ships annually, the US builds fewer than 5. This gap isn't just about ship production. It's about military power. The US understands that maintaining a powerful fleet is crucial not only for national security, but also as a strategic tool to control important global trade routes. The Jones Act was passed to try to narrow this gap, but the difference remains vast. The US faces a massive challenge in rebuilding its military and trade power through its ships, while China is steadily closing the gap. The economic pressure China is placing on US industries is becoming more evident, especially in key sectors like healthcare and technology. Dependence on Chinese products and raw materials has put the US in a difficult position. It's not just about missing parts, but China's economic strength is gradually undermining the US strategic industries. And this isn't just about manufacturing, but also about providing services in essential sectors like healthcare. However, what many fail to realize is that this trade war isn't just affecting industries or economies, but creating a series of global repercussions. Higher shipping costs, reduced competition, and vulnerable supply chains are not only changing how companies operate, but also disrupting the entire global economy. These issues are making the global economy more fragile than ever before. Finally, experts warn that this trade war could lead to new geopolitical flashpoints. Regions like Taiwan and the South China Sea may become power play areas for nations looking to control crucial trade routes. When trade becomes a tool of power, countries will not only fight on the economic battlefield, but also on the global political map. The US-China trade war has never been just a battle over money and goods. It's part of a larger global competition to determine who will dominate the world in the future. And if not handled carefully, these tensions could lead to a volatile geopolitical conflict, where every decision can have far-reaching consequences. The US-China trade war is no longer a temporary issue, but has become a true power struggle with far-reaching implications for the global economy. The delays of billions of dollars worth of goods, rising tariffs, and increased port fees are clear signs that this is a long-term economic war. It is not just affecting the two countries, but changing the global economic landscape. The US is trying to rebuild domestic manufacturing through initiatives like the CHIPS Act and the Inflation Reduction Act. But the road ahead is not easy. Rising costs, job displacement, and strong competition from China remain major challenges. Nevertheless, China is emerging stronger with power in technology and green energy, making it a formidable competitor for the US. The question now is whether the US can regain its competitive edge in the supply chain as China continues to solidify its economic and technological position. Will China's economic power reshape the global order? And will countries accept this dominance? And finally, is fully decoupling from China a viable option, or will it only result in severe economic consequences? This war isn't just an economic showdown. It could be the beginning of a new cold economic war, where every nation must adjust its strategy to survive. What do you think about the current situation and its impact on global trade?